This episode is brought to you by Monkey Nutrition. On the edge of that fitness industry is CrossFit. That probably is going in the right direction, as in you're seeing functional movement, you're seeing, Olympic lifts, which I know you're a fan of. So how do you feel about when you see things like CrossFit? I know in an interview you said they've brought a lot of good things to the industry.
CrossFit is definitely a very positive phenomenon in my eyes. And everybody likes to bitch and moan on CrossFit from the outside.
And everyone who comes on the show, everyone wants to ask me about CrossFit. They're like the whipping boy, but yet they're a huge movement at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's a very largely positive force. And it definitely brought in a lot of movements. So, for example, just in the first few years of CrossFit, you're going to have to learn a lot of movement, deal with a lot of patterns. Yeah, it's limited. It's not about movement,
right?
Because the center of the CrossFit model didn't place movement. It placed capacity, which is a very mechanical concept.
Right, that's the workout of the day, the WODs. It's how much can you do, post your result for time.
Exactly.
It's quantifying the movement, right?
It's in a way trying to quantify, yeah. Although this is not mechanics, right. This is biomechanics.
Right.
There is a huge difference in the way that you approach biomechanics and mechanics. And any beginner scientist would have caught on to this for a long time ago and would say there is a major issue. So in classic physics, like moving an X amount of mass from point A to point B is always the same, where you look at it from a biomechanical perspective, the engine that moves that mass changes the whole perspective. And sometimes the longer path is the more efficient one, not the shortest linear line. And you see that all the time. For example, a pull-up, to pull up and down in one line is not very efficient. The behind-the-back pull-up, for example, is much harder than assuming some form of an arc. But physically, you're moving the same amount of mass from point A to point B. Against gravity. I'm talking about against gravity here. Right. So that's it. I think CrossFit is a good thing. I think CrossFit brought back a lot of good stuff. I think all of these people who like to criticize CrossFit, they eat the breadcrumbs below CrossFit's table. And they need to have a bit of respect there. And they need to realize where they stand. And then you can also criticize. That's fine. You can also say things and you can present things. And I think the CrossFit community is a very open community. There are the hardcore fans that, don't really listen to anything and just, blah, blah, blah. But then there are a lot of intelligent people within the CrossFit industry. And I think a lot of them are geared wanting to get more tools for movement. And I've been working for years in all across the world with CrossFitters, and I like it. They're hard workers. They're open-minded mostly, and some of them are moving in a movement perspective and changing their minds, and that's because CrossFit has brought them to the point where they can make this paradigm shift. While the Globo gym goer is so far away,
Right.
Just can't hear you.
Right. He's not thinking. He's coming in and doing these standard linear movements every day and writing them down on his card. And you would much rather have a CrossFitter than that guy.
Yeah.
But what is CrossFit missing then? You talk about the WODs as being some kind of an attempt to quantify, and then that misses the point of, for example, what you're doing.
No, it's a huge. There are so many things missing. It's the funny thing is most CrossFitters are not humble enough to see how much is missing. But once you show it to them, they accept it. But they're not in themselves. They believe that they're working on their weakness, for example. There is a very large talk about working on your weaknesses. Working on your weaknesses requires sometimes a completely different set of tools. It's not about strength. It's not about, there is so much stuff happening in the mental game, in the development of movement patterns, coordination, the formation of habits and balance, a lot of stuff that is not addressed in CrossFit on a large scale. CrossFit operates with quantifiable patterns. That's already problematic because you eliminated a lot of non-quantifiable patterns. It doesn't work with improving movement intelligence, the ability to adaptability, the ability to react to changing environments. So give me the guy with the biggest engine, but if he can't manipulate the car, throw him in a BJJ match and he can't do anything, he's missing the tools. Some of them are perceived as technical tools, but it's not only that. Because of course he doesn't know BJJ, so give him the techniques. But there are other set of tools. And that's, for example, a lot of stuff that I'm doing with BJJ practitioners, MMA fighters. There is a layer of homo motus, the mover, that should be addressed. And it's somewhere between strength and conditioning and technical work.
Right.
This adaptability, this unknown, and the best of the best out there have this thing in common.
This week on London Real, we have astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I wake up every morning astonished that an astrophysicist can have 1.7 million Twitter followers.